If you think you've heard every prison story there is, think again. Hit that subscribe button. Because what you're about to hear isn't just another tale from behind bars. It's a descent into one of the darkest corners of American justice. Welcome to San Quentin. The night began like any other on California's death row. A low hum of restless inmates, metal clanks echoing to the cold concrete corridors, and a fog rolling in from the bay that made the walls sweat. But at 2:13 a.m., that silence shattered. A guard in the West Block reported a scream, one so raw and guttural that even hardened correctional officers froze mid-step. It came from cell 245, the cell of Raymond Stokes, inmate number C, 39411. Stokes wasn't just any inmate. He was convicted murderer, sentenced to death in 2009 for the brutal slaying of a Silicon Valley CEO. But over the years, his case had become something of a mystery. His confession was shaky, his conviction controversial, and even some guards whispered that he wasn't the real killer. Yet, on that fog-choked night, his cell door was locked from the inside. When officers arrived, Stokes was gone. The cell was empty. Prison records, steel bars, surveillance footage, all confirmed the same impossible truth. There was no way out. No broken locks, no tunnels, no accomplices. It was as if the inmate had simply vanished from within the most secure death row in America. By sunrise, San Quentin was in chaos. The warden ordered a full lockdown. Every corridor was swept, every inmate strip-searched, every guard interrogated. But the only thing they found was a trail, a faint one, of shoe prints leading from Stokes' cell to a maintenance hallway that hadn't been used in over 30 years. At the end of that hallway was a door sealed with thick rust and welded steel. When investigators finally forced it open, a stench hit them like a wave, metallic, chemical, ancient. Behind the door lay an old execution chamber, one that had been decommissioned in the late 1950s, long before the gas chamber San Quentin became infamous for. Inside were dusty straps, cracked tiles, and a chair that still had dried residue on the armrests. And written on the wall, in black soot, were 3 words. He never left. Detective Lena Morales from the Marin County Sheriff's Department was called in. She'd handled death row disturbances before, but nothing like this. She'd always thought of San Quentin as a place where the system ended its stories, not where new ones began. She interviewed the guards first. One of them, Officer Greg Tanner, admitted something strange. 2 nights before he vanished, Tanner said, Stokes told me he could hear the chair. He said it whispers names. I thought he was just losing it. You know, death row paranoia. But that scream, I swear it wasn't just fear. It sounded like he was warning someone. Morales found Stokes' file in the warden's office. His execution date had been postponed 3 times, all due to procedural delays. But his last request, filed a week earlier, sent chills down her spine. It simply read, Don't let them use the old room again. How could he have known about a chamber that hadn't been opened in over half a century? As Morales dug deeper, inconsistencies began to surface. The warden claimed no such chamber existed. Yet old blueprints told another story. There were entire sections of the prison marked as restricted, sealed off for security modernization. But buried within those blueprints was a network of forgotten hallways and rooms, a labyrinth beneath death row itself. Then came the biggest shock. An anonymous tip landed on Morales' desk that afternoon. The caller said he'd worked construction during a renovation project at San Quentin back in 1987. He spoke in a hushed, trembling voice. We found something, he said. Something under the floor near the old chamber. The foreman told us to cover it up. Said it wasn't our business. What was it? Morales pressed. There was a pause. Then the voice whispered, Another cell. By evening, the FBI had joined the case. Drones were sent into the sealed corridors, mapping out the old infrastructure. What they found made national headlines. A secret chamber, buried beneath death row, equipped with restraints, soundproofing, and a crude ventilation system. It wasn't listed in any record or log. But there was something else, something that made even seasoned investigators turn pale. On the rusted execution chair inside that hidden room lay a photograph. It was old, faded, and water-damaged, but you'd still make out the face, Raymond Stokes, sitting in that very chair. The photo was dated March 18, 1957, decades before Stokes was even born. And when they flipped the photo over, a single word was scribbled on the back in red ink. By dawn, San Quentin was crawling with investigators, federal agents, and reporters desperate for a glimpse of what was unfolding inside California's oldest prison. But behind the press barricades and barbed wire, something darker was happening. Something that wasn't meant for the public eye. Detective Lena Morales hadn't slept in 30 hours. She stood in the bowels of the prison, staring at the old photograph, the one that showed Raymond Stokes strapped into a chair decades before he was even born. The air was damp, heavy with the stench of rust and mold. The flickering lights overhead seemed to pulse with the heartbeat of the place itself. "This can't be real," muttered one of the technicians, holding the photo under ultraviolet light. "It's genuine. Paper, ink, all mid-50s era. No sign of digital tampering." But Morales wasn't convinced. "If it's real," she said quietly, "then we're not dealing with just a missing inmate. We're dealing with something that's been buried by the state for over 60 years. The warden, Harold Whitman, had been stonewalling the investigation from the beginning. When Morales demanded access to the full archive of death row records, he refused. "You're not authorized," he said flatly. "Some things are classified for a reason, detective." She leaned across the desk, her voice a low growl. "A man vanished from a locked cell, and you've got a secret chamber filled with execution equipment that isn't on record. So either you give me access, or I start pulling people in front of a grand jury." An hour later, the files were on her desk. Inside, Morales found decades of missing paperwork. Inmate files, medical reports, and sealed incident logs. One entry stood out, March 18, 1957, the same date written on the back of the photo. The file name, Inmate 8021 Raymond J. Stokes. Her stomach tightened. The record described an inmate with the exact same name, same physical build, even the same distinctive scar along his jawline. The charge? First-degree murder. The sentence? Death by gas chamber. But the execution log was marked procedure canceled, transferred. No transfer records existed. 2 Raymond Stokes. 2 men, same name, same face, 60 years apart. As Morales traced a lineage, a chilling pattern emerged. Every few decades, a prisoner with a nearly identical identity had appeared in the system. Same initials, same birth month, same crime profile. Each one either executed, disappeared, or found dead under unusual circumstances. It wasn't a coincidence. It was a cycle. Meanwhile, inside the prison, fear was spreading among the guards. They whispered that strange things were happening in the West Block at night. Lights flickering, cell doors jamming, screams echoing through empty corridors. One officer claimed he saw a man in an old-style uniform, the kind worn in the 1950s, walking past the death row wing, only to vanish before his eyes. Morales didn't believe in ghost stories. But when she reviewed the CCTV footage from the night Stokes disappeared, her skepticism began to fracture. At exactly 2:13 a.m., the timestamp of the scream, a shadow appeared outside Stokes' cell. It wasn't a guard, and it wasn't another inmate. The figure stood motionless for 12 seconds, long enough to trigger the motion sensors. Then it simply dissolved, and yet, a second later, the door to Stokes' cell unlocked. There was no override, no manual key entry, no mechanical failure. The lock had disengaged from the control panel in the security room, remotely, but the guard on duty swore he'd been nowhere near it. Someone or something had opened that cell from the system's mainframe. When the prison IT team pulled the log data, one file stood out. The system user ID used to access the door was H. Whitman 57, the warden's name, and the number 57, the same year on the photograph. Morales confronted him in his office. "You want to tell me how your name shows up in a digital access log from last night, with a timestamp linking you to a security override you claimed didn't happen?" Whitman's face went pale. "Detective, I didn't." "Save it," she cut him off. "You're either complicit or you're covering for someone." He hesitated, then exhaled. "There's a file, a sealed one. From the old Board of Corrections. It's in the sub-basement archive. They told me never to open it. Why? Morales pressed. Because it's not just about the inmates, he said. It's about who they were testing. That night, Morales and 2 agents descended into the sub-basement archives, a place thick with dust and rot. The air was stale, and the single overhead bulb swung slowly like a pendulum. They found the cabinet Whitman mentioned, a rusted metal drawer marked Project Renewal. Inside were yellow documents stamped top secret. It wasn't just executions. It was experimentation. The documents revealed that during the 1950s, a classified program inside San Quentin used condemned inmates for psychological and neurological testing, memory transference, identity replication, behavioral duplication. The experiments were funded under Cold War research grants. Subjects were supposedly terminated, but the last entry noted, Subject RJ57 viable. Morales' hand trembled as she flipped the final page. A black and white mugshot stared back at her. The same face as Raymond Stokes. Same eyes. Same scar. At the bottom of the file was a handwritten note. Subject RJ57 successfully replicated. Awaiting reactivation. Then, suddenly, the lights flickered. A faint buzz filled the basement. The hum of an old electrical circuit coming to life. From somewhere deep in the lower levels, a metallic clang echoed, followed by the hiss of a door sliding open. The agents froze. Morales whispered. That came from the old chamber. They ran toward the sound, flashlights slicing through the darkness. The closer they got, the stronger the metallic smell became. And then, in the distance, a light flickered inside the execution room. On the chair sat a figure, motionless, head bowed, wrists bound by aged leather straps. It was Raymond Stokes, alive. And when Morales stepped closer, he lifted his head slowly and spoke in a voice that didn't belong to him. Detective, they never stopped the program. The silence that followed was so deep it swallowed sound. Dust hung in the air like smoke. Detective Lena Morales stared at the man strapped to the execution chair. The same man who was supposed to have vanished. The same man who'd somehow appeared in a photo from 1957. Her heart pounded. Raymond, how are you alive? He looked up, eyes glazed, face pale beneath the flickering light. They didn't kill me, he whispered. They rewired me. One of the federal agents raised his weapon. Sir, stay still. But Raymond's voice grew steadier, almost rehearsed. They wanted to see if identity could survive death, if memory could be transferred. Morales stepped closer. Transferred into what? His gaze drifted toward the far wall, where the old control panels still hummed faintly, into whoever came next. Before Morales could respond, the lights cut out completely. A low electrical hum reverberated through the chamber as a generator, somewhere deep underground, sputtered to life. The metal restraints on Raymond's wrists snapped open. Move! Morales shouted. The agents pulled their flashlights up, beams slicing through the blackness. But Raymond was already gone. They sprinted toward the hallway. The prison alarm blared. Over the radio, a voice screamed, "Containment breach in Block West. Inmate on the loose, possible armed." Except it wasn't just one inmate. As Morales and the agents reached the main corridor, chaos exploded around them. Death row cells were opening on their own. Doors that hadn't moved in decades clanged wide open as though some invisible force was overriding every lock in the system. One guard, trembling, pointed at the security monitor. "Look, the system's running under a user ID that doesn't exist. It's labeled RJ57. Morales' stomach turned. The same code from the secret project files. The power grid began flickering again, once, twice, before plunging the entire block into darkness. Only the emergency lights glowed red, washing the corridor in blood-colored haze. From somewhere near the death chamber, a deep groan echoed, metal grinding on metal. Then came the voice. Over the intercom, a voice that was part human, part machine, low and distorted. Test complete. Renewal phase active. The warden's voice suddenly crackled over Morales' radio. Panicked. "Detective, get out of there." He's not." Static. Then silence. Morales pressed forward, refusing to run. She had to see what was happening in the execution room. When she pushed the steel door open, her flashlight beam froze on the chair. Raymond was there again, sitting calmly, almost serenely, his wrists free now, hands resting on his knees. Behind him, on the tiled wall, the words Project Renewal were scrawled in fresh red streaks. She aimed her light at him. "What did you do?" He smiled faintly. "You don't understand. I was never supposed to die. None of us were. They built a way to preserve us." "Who's they?" she demanded. "The program, the state, the Department of Corrections. They wanted soldiers who could live forever, memory without mortality. They started here, with condemned men. Nobody would miss us if something went wrong." Morales' throat tightened. "So what are you?" Raymond's expression turned distant, almost mournful. "I'm what's left, a memory wearing flesh that isn't mine." A sudden bang shook the room. The door behind her slammed shut. The lights above flickered again. And this time, the power surged through the old wiring in the walls. Sparks rained down like fire. Raymond stood unstrapped, eyes glowing faintly under the harsh fluorescent light. "They tried to erase me in 1957, but you can't kill an experiment that worked." The floor trembled as one of the generators below roared back online. Through the intercom, the same distorted voice repeated, "Renewal phase complete." Morales realized the horror of it. The facility wasn't just running, it was rebooting. The entire prison grid was linked to the project's original system. Each power surge wasn't a malfunction. It was a download. Every digital file, every inmate record, every biometric scan. They were feeding it. Raymond took a step toward her, voice calm. "It doesn't need the chamber anymore, Detective. It's in the system now. Every death row file, every identity renewed." She raised her gun, shaking. "Don't move." He didn't. He just smiled. "You can't stop it. You're part of it now." And then the lights went out again, for good this time. When the backup power came on minutes later, the chair was empty. The only thing left was a single Polaroid on the seat. Morales picked it up with trembling hands. It showed her, standing in the exact same room, same chair, gun raised. The timestamp read November 7th, 2025, 2:13 a.m. Her hand went cold. That was the current time. "Detective Morales!" A voice shouted behind her. Agents flooded the room. "Where's the inmate?" She couldn't answer. She just stared at the photo, her reflection shaking in the glossy surface. The warden's voice came through her earpiece, low and broken. "It's over, Detective. The system's offline. We've lost everything. Every file, every recording gone." But when she looked back at the control panel, a faint green light blinked on. A new file appeared on the monitor, encrypted, running under the same old ID, RJ57. Then another name populated beneath it, L. Morales, 25. Her blood ran cold. The system wasn't shutting down. It was updating. She turned toward the empty chair, now bathed in the glow of the monitor. The intercom crackled once more, and a voice, hers, came through, distorted but unmistakable. "Test complete. Renewal confirmed." The screen flickered and went black. They shut down San Quentin's West Block for good 3 days later. Officials claimed it was due to an electrical fire and data corruption, but those who were there knew the truth, or at least the parts they could bear to remember. The files from Project Renewal were destroyed, the chamber sealed behind concrete and steel. But the prison servers, long after the shutdown, still pinged a single IP address at exactly 2:13 a.m. every night. And every time they traced the signal, it led back to the same location, Cell 245. They thought the executions had ended. But some things at San Quentin never really die. If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one. Subscribe now, before the next name appears on the list.